Throughout the years, many fairy tales that we tell today have changed drastically since their first tellings. But what not many people know is how dark the original tales were. Here are 10 of the most disturbing dark origins of today's fairy tales. Number 10. The Little Mermaid. In the original tale, the prince falls in love with another princess instead of the Little Mermaid, and she turns to sea foam. But the reason for this is because he doesn't realise that the Little Mermaid is the woman who saved him from his shipwreck. She gives up her voice to get human legs in order to have him fall in love and marry her, but when he announces and finally meets his bride-to-be, he thinks she's the one who saves him from his near-death moment, and is completely in love with her. This breaks the mermaid's heart. In attempts to save their sister, the mermaid sisters cut off all their hair and gave it to the sea witch in return for a magic knife. The Little Mermaid needed to kill the prince and have his blood drip onto her feet so she could grow back her tail that night and swing back into the ocean. She did not, however, and thus turned to sea foam. Number 9. Cinderella. In the original story of Cinderella, her two stepsisters are desperate to be the prince's bride, but the glass slipper that Cinderella leaves at the ball is made only to fit Cinderella's foot. So, when the prince arrives at the house, the elder stepsister's big toe will not fit, and her mother hands her a knife to cut off the big toe, telling her that when she is queen, there will be no need to go anywhere on foot. When the prince takes her away, he realises there's blood gushing from her foot, and returns, and it's the second sister's turn, and she can get her toes in but not her heel. So the mother, once again, gives her a knife and tells her to cut it off, saying the same as before. He is tricked once more, only to return the sister again. Finally, Cinderella is brought out from the kitchen and is fitted with her golden shoe and is taken away. Number 8. Snow White. Looking glass on the wall, who in the land is the fairest of all? In the classic Snow White, the evil queen is essentially Snow White's stepmother, and she doesn't want to kill Snow White until the looking glass tells her that she is no longer the fairest in all the land. So, after the huntsman fails to kill Snow White and the looking glass tells her that Snow is hiding out with 7 dwarfs, the evil queen tricks Snow into nearly killing herself 3 times. The first was by lacing her bodice too tightly, the second was by combing her hair with a poisoned brush, and finally the third one is with the poisoned apple. Each time dwarves have to find her to save her from her near death, except for the last one. That is when Prince Charming comes out of the woods and asks to take her beautiful casket made out of glass and wood because he had fallen in love with her dead body. Not even joking on that one. No true love kiss, but his people drop the casket, dislodging the piece of apple stuck in Snow White's throat, and she comes back to life to marry the prince. In the end, the evil queen goes to the marriage and is forced to wear iron shoes that were placed in the fire and dance until she dies. Number 7. Rapunzel. In one rendition of the classic tale of the long-haired girl, she is not a princess. A child of 2 people who longed and longed to have a child but could not. These people lived next door to an enchantress, and this enchantress's garden was this rampion, which is a type of vegetable that Rapunzel gets her name from. Her father steals the root from the enchantress's garden for his wife because she so desperately wanted it. The enchantress was angry to find this out, and in the end told them that she would take their first child as payment for the vegetable. Up the tower is where Rapunzel lived when her prince found her and would visit her frequently. They fell in love, but Rapunzel didn't know how to get down, so they made a plan to make a silk rope. Rapunzel let it slip that the prince weighed less than the enchantress, so she cut off Rapunzel's long braids and sent her away to the desert. When the prince came up with a ladder, he found the enchantress, and before she could do anything to him, he jumped from the tower. He managed to survive but was blinded because he landed in thorns. He wandered into the same desert where Rapunzel was and found that she had twins. When Rapunzel cried into his eyes, he was able to see once more, and they were able to travel back to his kingdom with the two kids. Number 6. Sleeping Beauty. In the older tale of Sleeping Beauty, the princess is set to have her finger pricked by a spindle and die on her 15th birthday, all because Maleficent didn't get an invite to the party. But what you might not have known was that the prince didn't just kiss her awake. Instead, he fell so helplessly in love with her comatose body that he then decided to have his way with her, asleep or not, and that in turn caused her to become pregnant with, again, twins. They must have loved the idea of twins back then. This, of course, is while she is still asleep, and it's not until one of the babies, while looking for a breast for milk, sucks on her finger, awakens the princess, dislodging the piece of flax fibre that she had pricked her finger on. Number 5. Little Red Riding Hood. In the very oldest version of Little Red Riding Hood, there was no huntsman to save the day. He was only added in later to make a happy ending. That being said, there are still more gritty details to the story, like how the wolf actually dissects the grandmother, wears her skin and makes Little Red eat part of her own grandmother. But another version is that he just eats her and her grandmother, and this is where the huntsman comes in and saves them. Thank God he was created, and that the wolf didn't need to chew either woman. Number 4. Hansel and Gretel. The story that we all know is pretty gruesome enough, about two kids lost in the woods who find a witch's house. Then the witch tries to eat them, and in turn they shove her into a stove and run away. Well, in the French original, The Lost Children, their parents didn't actually want them because they were greedy, and have to decide to lose their own children in the forest. They find a red house, and a woman there lets them both in, but tells them they need to be quiet or else her husband will eat them. It ends up that her husband is the devil and found the children. He builds a sawhorse to bleed the children on, but they pretended not to know how to get on it. So when the devil's wife got in it, the boy slits her throat and took the devil's money and ran. They crossed the river, which the devil couldn't do, and went back home to take care of their parents despite them leaving them in the woods to die. Number 3. Three Little Pigs. In this well-known classic, the three little pigs build their houses out of various materials: straw, stick, and brick. We all know that it ends up with the brick house that stands up to the big bad wolf's "I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow the house down" line. And in the classic story, we know he opts for going down the chimney and burns his butt and runs out of the doors and is never to be seen again. But in the original story, the final pig decides that's not going to be enough. Instead, when the wolf decides to come down the chimney, he has a pot of boiling water waiting for him. And once the wolf is inside of it, he shuts the lid and cooks the wolf. Once dead, they all eat him. Number 2. The Pied Piper. In the original tale of the Pied Piper, there was a village overrun with rats. A man arrives dressed in the clothes of a pied and offers to rid the town of the vermin. The villagers agree to pay a vast sum of money if the Pied Piper can do so, and he does. He plays music on his pipe which draws out all the rats, and when he returns for the payment, the villagers won't cough up, so the Pied Piper decides to rid the town of children as well. In most modern variants, the Pied Piper draws the children to a cave where the townsfolk finally agree to pay up. Then he sends them back. In the original, however, the Pied Piper leads the children to a river where they all drown, except for a lame boy who couldn't keep up. Number 1. Beauty and the Beast. The original tale is titled Little Broomstick. In the original story, Belle has two older, spoiled sisters, and a father whom is a merchant. On one of his trips, he asks his daughters what they would like from his trip. The older siblings asked for a necklace and earrings, while Belle simply asked for nothing. But as her father insists, she asks for 3 roses on a single stem. On his journey, the father finds the first 2 gifts easily, but ends up in a large garden and finds the roses. Upon taking them, he runs into the hideous beast. He begs for the beast to let him go, for he was only getting the roses for his daughter. The beast lets the fathers go on the condition that he allows the merchant father to give up his daughter as his wife in a few months' time. Time comes, and Belle ends up being taken to the castle as the beast's companion. They don't really talk much, but they do sleep together. First, it is only side by side, then slowly he leaves her a kiss, until she can no longer sleep without him by her side. When she sees that he looks as if he is dead in the courtyard, and she weeps over his lifeless body, he returns to his normal self. His father had a sorceress transform him into a hideous beast when he would not marry someone he did not love, and the only way to break the curse was to have someone love him as an ugly beast. The story, however, does not end here, for Belle wants to bring her sisters and father to come live with her after she marries the beast turned prince. But the sisters, being completely jealous of her, drown her in a bathtub. And in another plot twist, the same sorceress brings Belle back to life and tells her the only way to punish the sisters properly is to turn them into stone columns, and if a man can ever fall in love with them, then they will return back to normal.